This is the folding drone that finally lets me capture print-worthy stills and cinematic zooms without hauling a giant rig. I'm talking about real 100MP photos and a flight experience that feels confident enough to plan complex shots, not just hope for them. It sits in that flagship portable category, aimed squarely at creators who care more about image quality and lens variety than shaving every ounce. If you're shooting real estate, travel films, commercial B-roll, or large landscape prints, this fits. If you want a casual toss-in-the-jacket pocket aircraft, this isn't that. The design tells you a lot about how it behaves. Folded, it's compact but dense, and that density pays off when the wind picks up. The finish is matte gray with a proper heatsink underside that kicks the cooling fan early, especially when you start shooting high-res stills or 6K video. The front gimbal assembly is exposed and intricate, allowing for a full range of movement you don't usually get on a folding drone. It looks delicate, yet engineered, like a precision instrument rather than a toy. I treat it like a lens mounted on a stabilizer, careful when packing, mindful of how I set it down. The RC2 controller is the right kind of evolution. It's balanced, the grips are comfortable for long sessions, and the built-in screen is bright enough for noon sun, though I still use a simple shade when I'm judging exposure critically. The sticks fold into the frame, and I appreciate not having to screw and unscrew them every time. The Flymore bag, on the other hand, is too bulky for how little useful structure it gives you. It feels like wasted space with a tight slot for the controller, so I swapped to a smaller third-party case after a week. The charging hub is the quiet hero. It tops up multiple batteries efficiently with the included 100-watt adapter, and the power bank function has saved my controller and phone more than once. Setup has been uneventful in the best way. Firmware updates applied cleanly, the O4 Plus link connects almost instantly, and the live feed stays stable even around concrete and glass. Startup is not subtle. The fan spools up, the gimbal runs through a complex check, and you can tell the processing pipeline is doing real work. Takeoff has a quirk I can reproduce. A slight nose dip as the rear motors bite first. It settles into a steady hover right away, just enough to notice, but not enough to matter. In the air, it feels like a small tank. It resists gusts with authority and holds its place with a kind of twitchy overcorrection that you mostly forget as soon as you look at the footage. It's quick when you need to reposition, but it's happiest when you're flying deliberately and letting the gimbal do the fine work. Vertical gimbal rotation is a single tap and useful for social content, but the system dials back speed and braking aggression in that orientation. I learned to plan longer stopping distances in vertical mode and to stay ahead of the drone's momentum. Let's talk images, because that's the point. The main Hasselblad camera delivers 100MP stills with 14-bit files that grade like a dream. The perspective is a touch tighter than the typical ultra-wide you see from drones, which helps lines stay cleaner and subjects feel natural. I can lift shadows 2 to 3 stops in sunset scenes without the color falling apart, and skies hold highlight detail instead of clipping to white. The variable aperture is practical on bright days, letting me keep shutter speed where I want it without swapping ND filters as often. When I do need NDs, I bring my own set because they're not always included in every combo. The tele lenses are no longer throwaway tools. The mid-tele is my favorite for storytelling. It compresses the background, keeps subjects comfortable distance-wise, and autofocus locks without hunting, even in low-contrast top-down shots. The long tele is finally sharp enough to use in deliverables. I've pulled parallax shots of ridgelines and boats where the compression makes the scene feel far more expensive than it was to capture. Swapping lenses is smooth, and color matching between modules is close enough that I can keep a consistent look across cuts. There is a tax for those 100MP images. After each high-res capture, the system processes the file. On my unit, that means a few seconds of enhancing image where controls feel locked and the live view is effectively paused. It's long enough to miss a second shot of a fleeting moment, so when I'm shooting moving subjects, I'll switch to the bin still mode or bracket fewer frames. Using fast storage helps the pipeline, but the processing pause is still there. It's the one workflow snag that repeatedly gets in my way. I've flown it in a handful of scenarios that tell me where it shines. Golden hour on a rocky coastline is where the main camera sings. I framed wider than usual, knowing I could crop or print huge later, and the files hold texture in leaves, rock, and water I would have lost with older drones. In a small harbor, I tracked a slow-moving boat and switched to the mid-tele for a more intimate angle. The gimbal stayed smooth as the craft corrected for wind, and the shot felt like it came from a much bigger platform. Downtown on a rooftop job, the signal stayed clean. Even with reflective glass and a dozen visible networks, the feed didn't stutter, and I never lost command responsiveness. Night and low light are always tricky, but the obstacle sensing system does better than my instincts expected. In a dim park, the radar overlay clearly showed trees I couldn't see with my own eyes. It's confidence building up to a point. Light fog, though, can set off the sensors to the degree that forward motion gets blocked. When that happens, I switch to the mode that disables avoidance and bring it home cautiously. It's a safety system that errs on the side of stopping, which is preferable to the opposite, but it requires you to stay calm and know your override. A specific use case where it's paid for itself is real estate and property marketing. I can shoot establishing frames on the main camera that hold up in large print brochures, then cut to the mid-tele to show the home in context with the neighborhood. The long tele gives me compressed drive-ups and roof details without hovering directly overhead. The files are robust enough that the colorist on the project had room to match everything to ground cameras without fighting banding or posterization. The battery endurance is high enough that I reliably get a full sequence on one pack, and the return to home triggers with a sensible buffer. With 3 batteries in the combo and the parallel charging hub, I've kept a rotation going all afternoon without stress. There are small touches I appreciate daily. The customizable buttons on the RC2 let me toggle peaking and zebra without digging into menus. The live feed carries enough dynamic range that I can judge exposure accurately on the fly. The charging hub's parallel behavior means I don't have to babysit the order of dead batteries. The drone can act as a power bank for the controller, and that's one less cord and brick in my bag. The gimbal's rotational range enables elegant reveals that would be awkward or impossible with a conventional housing. It isn't perfect. The fan noise on startup is loud for quiet environments, so I stage a little farther from sets when possible. The horizon can drift in gusty conditions, or after quick direction changes. A mid-shoot gimbal recalibration usually corrects it. Vertical mode's throttle and braking limits are conservative, so I plan slower moves there. The carry bag in the combo is the wrong shape for how I pack, and I ditched it early. The processing delay after high-res stills needs refinement. It breaks the rhythm at precisely the moment you want to shoot again. If you're a photographer or filmmaker who values the extra detail in stills, the flexibility of multiple focal lengths in the air, and a long, stable link that lets you compose confidently, this is the folding drone to look at. You'll carry a bit more mass, and you'll tolerate a few software quirks that I expect will be refined with updates. If you want a grab-and-go aircraft for casual flights or the smallest footprint, a lighter series is going to feel simpler and more relaxed. But if image quality and lens choice determine your work, this combo with the RC2 gets you there with fewer compromises than anything I've used that still folds into a shoulder carry. Please check the comments section for detailed information about the DJI Mavic 4 Pro Fly More combo with DJI RC2.